Starting from the beginning of January 2022, I'm going to be hosting and guiding a reading of David Copperfield, working our way through the original parts one a week, which will take us through to the middle of May. If you don't have a print copy of the book, or else you'd like to replicate the earliest reader's experience as closely as possible, you can find all 20 parts online at the University of Victoria's website, the link to which you'll find in the description of this video. I'll be posting videos about each part at the beginning of the week, as well as hosting live discussion sessions roughly once a month. In this introductory chat, I'd just like to give you a little background to the novel and an idea of what you can expect in the upcoming weekly instalments. Europe was still reeling from the momentous revolutionary events that had swept through the continent in 1848, not just incidentally the year in which the Communist Manifesto of Marx and Engels first appeared in print. The Hungarian Revolution was still ongoing in 1849, a spirited nationalist resistance movement against Austrian oppression. And across the Atlantic, the California gold rush was in full swing, as memorialised in the well-known ballad featuring Clementine.
Dwelt a miner, 49, and his daughter Clementine.
Dickens had completed Dombey and Son in the spring of 1848, and it proved commercially his most successful novel to date. Later in the year, he wrote some anonymously published pieces for The Examiner, edited by his friend and literary advisor John Forster, including an enthusiastic review of a popularising work entitled The Poetry of Science. This may seem irrelevant now, but I hope to show in the course of these videos that Dickens derived a surprising amount of inspiration from this book, which helped to shape David Copperfield. At the start of 1849, though, Dickens was free to embark on a new long novel, and John Forster suggested he try his hand at a first-person narrative, an idea that seemed to get the author's creative juices flowing. In the first week of the new year, he visited Yarmouth in Norfolk and declared it the strangest place in the world. I shall certainly try my hand at it. It would of course become the setting for the upturned boat on the beach inhabited by Dan Peggotty and his extended family. On January the 15th, Dickens' sixth son was born and christened Henry Fielding Dickens, in honour of the 18th century novelist whose most famous book, Tom Jones, was published exactly 100 years earlier in 1749. Like Tom Jones, Dickens' new novel was going to be a picaresque Bildungsroman, the life and adventures of a man. But what should he and the novel be called? In mid-February, the hero was pencilled in as Thomas Mag, and the novel was to be called Mag's Diversions. But John Forster didn't much like that, and Dickens went back to the drawing board. Just a week later, the hero had morphed into David Copperfield, and the working title became The Copperfield Survey of the World as It Rolled. I'll have much to say about naming in the course of these videos, but just bear this fact in mind. However innocuous and natural sounding Copperfield may seem, it wasn't, until Dickens used it, an English surname. Dickens invented it. He liked it, with good reason, and it stuck. And of course it's since become one of the most famous names in world literature, along with Scrooge and Oliver Twist. As a start to thinking about literary names, just ask yourself what the names David and Copperfield suggest to you, and maybe jot those ideas down in comments on this video. In any original Dickens novel in parts, you'll find several pages of ads, like these, before you get to the text, and very often, after the text, further ads. They principally feature other books, bedding and household goods, clothing, stationery, and patent medicines. Each week, I'll focus on one ad from the relevant part. But for now, as a taster, I'll offer you from Part 8, Milton's Hair Lubricant, guaranteed to speedily render the scantiest head of hair thick, curly and lustrous. We'll see about that. Its perfume, we are told, is novel and most delicious. Probably sweeter smelling than the bear's grease that David Copperfield applies to his hair, and certainly less nauseating than the beef suet used by the butcher's boy with whom David fights. Milton's hair lubricant in elegant pots, 2 shillings. Each part is accompanied by 2 illustrations, the work of H.K. Brown, better known as Fizz. Each week I'll show you these illustrations and make some comments about them. For now though, I'll just share the cover, which was also the work of Fizz, and remained the same throughout the novel's running parts. I'm sure some of you have played the game of looking at the cover of The Mystery of Edwin Drood and tried to work out what the plot elements were that Dickens never lived to write from clues in the vignettes. You'd be hard pressed to reconstruct the plot of David Copperfield from the cover, as Dickens himself only had a few vague ideas about the shape of the novel when he discussed the design with Fizz. Beyond the generic notions of childhood, friendship and marriage, we can glean very little. No specifics such as kite flying, upturned boats or storms at sea, but commonplaces like Dame Fortuna, hobby horses and castles in the air. Indeed, the central image of a thoughtful baby above a globe seems to refer us back to the earlier, rejected title, The Copperfield Survey of the World as It Rolled. Every week I'll give you 2 clues, 2 letters. One will be from a cryptic crossword type clue. The other will be a letter from an anagram. You'll need to collect these letters week on week in order to build up the complete clues. And then, using the cryptic clue, resolve the Copperfield related anagram. And why would you want to do this? In order to win, for free, this first edition of Dickens's next great novel, Bleak House. I'll give you details of how to enter the competition in April. And finally, each week I'll pose a question for you to think about while reading. Here's one to keep in the back of your mind all the way through the novel. David Copperfield is referred to as the Younger because his father bore the same name. So the question is, what do we learn about David Copperfield Senior and what do we never learn? See you again soon.